All right, I'm going to reteach one thing, but I've evolved it a lot in a way. Anybody remember that objection matrix I taught a while back? I'm trying to find a way that's universal.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
So it looks almost like a house. My art's not the best, but there's 5 different places of this, right? And I want to go back and just kind of remind and reteach on it. And I added a couple things to it. Everybody, what's the first part? Everybody remember? Objection matrix. I'm going to teach on a couple of objection handlers as well, but what is the first part? Isolate. Isolate. So what does that mean?
Objection or the same one. Separate.
So no matter what, I got to get in this habit. I want you guys to use this when you role play. So I evolved the old way how I did it, what we had on here with that. So what's the ways to isolate? Yeah, 3 main things I want you. So I've added all these exterior pieces. I want to help you guys. So obviously, I want to do what when I first get that? Agree. So I say what? Totally understand. Totally understand. I'm going to do a short. I'm going to say understand. So I totally understand. ... And there's going to be a couple of pieces of this. Aside from X, aside from blank, what does that say? Is that the only thing that'd be stopping you today from taking advantage of this? Aside from blank, is that the only thing that'd be stopping you today from taking advantage of this? Whatever it is, right? And this, let's use an example, this agency agreement. On the buyer side or the seller side, so great, totally appreciate it, totally understand that. Aside from, whatever it is that the only thing that'd be stopping you guys from moving forward, taking advantage of this system today? Yes. Why do I want to do that? Why is that a must? If I don't isolate that, the minute I overcome that, there's going to be something else. Why? Because they're fearful of commitment. They're fearful of making the decision because they're worried it's going to be what? The wrong decision. And we'll talk about that in a minute. People tend to have avoidance whenever they need to think about it. Whatever it is, they don't want to make a decision because they're scared the decision will be a bad decision. People have been conditioned that way for years and years and years now. Okay? And so I just need to understand that. Anytime somebody tells you you need to think about it, what you want to do is translate that to what? I'm avoiding it because I don't want to make a bad decision. They want the universe to be able to make the decision for them, and that's why most people live in a very shitty situation. Okay, the second way to overcome that, right, is that the only thing? So, second way to handle that. Is that the only thing blank? These are different ways I just kind of beefed these up for you guys. So I want you to rotate these. I want you to be able to practice and role play on these so that you can use this for any objection based on what it is. Why do you think I'm hitting on objections a lot lately? We're still getting them a lot, right? We're in a place of resistance, a marketplace of resistance, and we're still going to ask when we get to the conflict piece of the transaction. Both agency agreement-wise, both telephone-wise, and obviously on offers and issues that we have along that process. Also, when deals start to blow up, right? That's another objection. We want to make sure that we're overcoming that scenario. One more, it's a new one. If it didn't blank, would you do it? That's just setting them up, right? My favorite one overall is aside from, it's very non-threatening. It's very easy to do. Hey, look, aside from you having to have an agreement for 12 months, is that the only thing that'd be stopping you today? Right? Whatever. Aside from you talking to your husband or your wife, is that the only thing stopping you from moving forward today? Right? I'm anchoring down the first part of this, which is part of the strategy. I can really track them down that scenario. This is pretty basic shit. But I'm going to add to this in a few minutes. Right? Second piece is what? Cushion. All right. Second thing, the reason I'm teaching this again is y'all don't know it. But I added some things to it, and I want to teach a couple more things on it today, too. I want to teach some other stuff, but I wanted to reiterate this because it was just very valuable in that. Cushion. Aside from somebody reading notes, what is it? What's the best way to overcome objection and what's isolated? Feel, felt, found, right? Feel, felt, found, super important. So I cushion it. Hey, look, I totally appreciate that. Totally understand. Aside from you having to talk to your wife, that one thing that would be holding you back from taking advantage of this today. Yeah. Yes, great. I appreciate that. And you know what? I totally understand exactly how you feel. A lot of other clients that felt the same exact way. What they found was, and then I'm going to do what? Starts overcoming the time that, hey, look, they found that their wife actually loved them for making the right decision. I'm going to explain to you why here in a second. Right? Whatever it is, this is the cushion piece, because what am I starting to do there? This is where I start my loop with them. Right? I'm starting to loop them back around to what? I want them to know that what they think is okay. Because they feel like there's this conflict, and they're scared to have conflict with me, so what do most people do? They shut down, and you can't sell them once they shut down. And so I want to not get triggered. I want to make sure, hey, look, this is what I get excited about. I start to make my money where all the objections come in. That's where you make money in sales, is overcoming objections. So I have that and say, hey, look, I totally understand that. Right? I know exactly how you feel. I had clients that felt the same exact way. But what we found was, now who do I have in my third party there? Three main ones. Number one is you, based on the situation or scenario. Clients. What's the other one? It's going to be just others. So third parties based on what it is. This could be during the offer negotiations, could be in a deal blowing up. This most likely, though, where's the most tension in this scenario happen? Agency agreement, right? And so that's where I want you to be the best. And also, it's going to be on the telephone. I think you got to look at the overall, hierarchy. It would be most resistance in the presentation and also in the telephone. If you look at statistically, you're getting most of these on the telephone and then in the face-to-face appointment. But the one that matters the most is the face-to-face appointment. Right? Because I have the ability to go back and forth with them during that process. And you can sell, right? It's okay, you can have some conflict there, which is super important. Now, next piece of that, I'll move to is the transition. Two main things to the transition. Without looking at notes, who knows? Let me ask you a question. What's that do there? Allows me to start transitioning to me starting to close them. I know exactly how they feel, right? Other people felt the same way. They found was it was actually a very, very good decision that their husband or wife ended up loving them for. I'm going to explain to them why. I can just ask. I'll explain here to you why in a second. But let me ask you a question. See, I'm making the shift there psychologically. And an example of that would be, let me ask you a question. Does your wife, how long have you been married?
5 years.
5 years, right? Does your wife know that you came in today?
Yeah.
All right, for me to try, I'm going to trust, so I can't remember which one it is. Does your wife trust you? Yes, right?
Yeah.
Does your wife know you're here today?
Yeah.
And then the next part is I'm going to have you, sorry, that's the next one here. I'm going to have you consider, right? Your wife does trust you, make the right decision, and you don't need to talk to her because if you didn't, she wouldn't let you come here by yourself, right? Whatever it is. I'm going to give you guys 3 different ways to overcome that in a second. All right? But I'm just going to give you an example of how you do it here, right? Another one we have here from a transition place is if I could blank, would you? My favorite is if I could show you how to blank, is that something you might be interested in? It's a way for me to transition the conversation to more of here's where I'm going to start closing. Because I'm going to be able to walk you down the line here where I want you to go. Okay? If I could show you a way where you can take advantage of this and your wife would never be mad at you, and if she wasn't happy with you, that we could let you out of it. Does that something you might be interested in? Yes. Boom. Now I'm going to go through down the track where I need for a cancellation guarantee if I have to. All this stuff is universal, right? The reason I designed this is that you can use these universal based on some of these different ones. So you guys with me on this? So it's kind of a framework where if you just know the basics, you can get almost out of anything. Okay, these are the 2 options you have here. Let me ask you a question. If I could, would you? Not saying I could, but I can find a way that you could be able to take advantage of this after you talk to your wife and it work out for you guys. Is that something you might be interested in? Right? This is very, very big in timeshare. This one here. Right? If I can, I'm not saying I can ever get this price for this week, but if I could, right, is that something you might be interested in? And magically, what happens? They end up getting that price, right? Because they had it marked up super high. They bring the manager over, the manager comes over, the manager goes to the back, the manager comes back. Oh man, we just had this 1 week left and you guys can get it. Right? It just came back, it just went through foreclosure, whatever they say, right? So the reality is I want to make sure I'm able to, if I could, would you? I'm not saying I could, but if I can show you a way that you can take advantage of this and be able to talk to your wife and check with her and run it by her just to make sure she's okay with it, is that something you might be interested in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, boom. Now what I got locked in on that, and what am I going to do? I'm going to close on the trust thing. I'm going to go a few of the closes I'll show you guys in a few minutes. We talked about it a little bit before. And then in worst case, I'm going to do what? Offer the cancellation guarantee. But the value of the cancellation guarantee is really magnified in how I handle it here. You guys with me on that? If I just drop straight to the cancellation guarantee, what happens? Lose leverage because they think you just had that in your back pocket the whole time and weren't really making a big deal of it. And psychologically, I need to be okay with, hey, look, this is okay with me as long as I can talk to my wife and she's okay with it. But here's the deal. It's also an expose if that's a real objection or not. If I say, hey, let me ask you this. If I could get you where you can take advantage of this today, you still talk to your wife, she could double check, and if that works out for you, she's okay with it, does that work for you? Whatever you say. And if he says no, what's that tell me?
It's not the real objection.
Not the real objection. And so it's important to hit that step, because if not, I could overcome that, bring the cancellation guarantee, but meanwhile, I didn't address the other actual objection. Which leaves me in a situation where, in a chess match of mental, back and forth, I'm going to lose. So in chess, you got to make the right moves in the right order. Same thing from the sales standpoint. Are you with me on this? Which is very, very important. Now move to the next part, which I start to get offense. Which is what? The reframe. This is overall, anybody remember? I'm going to have you consider. I want to have you consider that your wife does trust you. You know why? He told me you've been married 5 years. Told me that she trusts you to be here and that she knew you were coming here today. And so I'm going to consider that she doesn't trust you to make the right decision today, because if she didn't trust you and didn't think you were capable, she wouldn't allow you to come here in the first place, meet with a salesperson. Would you agree? Boom, right there. It's hard to get out of that. In that scenario. But so many times we do what? We don't address the elephant in the room, which is that, hey, look, they talked to their wife or husband about coming, and meanwhile the husband and wife didn't show up. And I call them out, hey, look, if your wife didn't think you were capable of making the right decision, she wouldn't let you be here by yourself. Would you agree? So then I have, how do you consider? I'm going to have some type of close here. And what I'm going to say at the end? Would you agree? Super important piece there. And so if you practice and master this framework, you can pretty much get over anything. But think about it. Whatever it is in that scenario. Last one's, what do you think it is? Close. This point's where you got to make sure you're bringing it back and you're checking them into that part. Right? What's the best ones to have close here? Sound fair enough? One of my favorite. Oh, sound fair enough? Does that work for you? Overall. Super important for us to make sure we have that. So, first piece is what? Isolate it. First part, isolating and saying what? Totally understand. You got to make sure you have that energetically. Hey, totally understand. I appreciate you coming in that way. Right? Totally makes sense for that. Ideally, aside from talking with your wife, is that the only thing to stop you from taking advantage of this service today?
Yeah.
Great. So just want to make sure she's okay with it, what you're saying. Perfect. I totally appreciate that. And then here's a couple other things I'm going to teach you guys in a second how to overcome that. I totally understand how you feel. I've had many clients come in just like yourself without their wife, and then all of a sudden they wish their wife was here, and they felt the same exact way you did at the end. They loved it. They were super excited about it. They knew that would help them out. And what they found was it was so good their wife loved them for making the right decision when they actually did. I'll show you how in a second, James. Right? Whatever it is in that scenario. Let me ask you a question. See how I'm making the transition here? Yeah. How long have you guys been married? 5 years. Great. Does your wife trust you? Yeah. Right, definitely, right? Great relationship, married 5 years. Let me ask you this. Does she know you're coming in today?
She did.
And then boom, right here. I'm going to have you consider that your wife does trust you to make the right decision today, and that you can't make it without her, because guess what? She wouldn't let you come in here today if she didn't trust you to make the right decision.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
Right? Whatever it is. And you're going to get some backup on that, and that's okay. What am I going to do then? I'm just giving you guys an example of how it plays out. Does that make sense? And I can alternate these other ones here in that scenario. Now, Do I use feel, felt, found every time? I don't have to. If you're good enough, you don't have to, but this just cushions the objection a little bit. It depends on your rapport with them. If I have a great rapport, I can go a little bit harder. But what this does is, hey, this needs to help them understand that, hey, look, they're justified in their thought. Does that make sense? I want to definitely use it on a listing presentation, right? Because it's a little bit bigger. They're dealing with their house. And what are they worried about most? They're making the decision that all of a sudden the wife or husband being pissed at them for signing something about them being there. Okay? But we do that overall in that scenario. The best close I've found is, how long have you been married? Do they trust you? Do they know you're coming in today? Then I follow up with, I'm going to have you consider. That's the best one I feel to beat it. And I'm going to give you guys a couple more in a second. Does that make sense? So, questions about that? I want you guys to study this because everybody masters it in that scenario. You can use it in pretty much anything. I'm trying to think of another one where it has overall. I mean, same thing with thinking about it. Right? You go the same thing. Let me ask you, because they say, well, I'm thinking about it. Totally understand how you feel. Right? Aside from having to think about this, right, and having some time to make the right decision, is that the only thing to stop you from taking advantage of it today? Yes. Right? Totally understand how you feel. We had a lot of clients felt the same exact way. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming at first. What they found was they absolutely needed this service and knew exactly what they're looking for. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question. How long have you been searching for a house?
About a year.
We already know that in the back. It's already asked it in the front end, right? Yeah, so I'm asking a question about a year. So let me ask you, is it safe to say you probably need to think about buying a house if you've already been looking for a year?
Yeah.
You've had a whole 365 days to think about it. Yeah. So I might be considered that you don't need to think about anything today. You've already been searching for that for a whole year, but the problem is thinking about it is what got you sitting in front of that seat today in front of me, because you've been thinking about it so much you haven't been able to take advantage of the right house. You see what I'm saying? You can walk them through anything on this based on what it has if you understand the fundamentals of it. And I designed it so we can use it in our scenario, no matter what their scenario is in that. And I'll give you kind of a couple examples of that. Let me ask you a question. How long have you been searching? I know the answer's already asked for it. A year. Some people have been searching for 2 years. Right? Well, I'm going to have you consider that you don't need to think about it. You've already been thinking about it for 365 days. The problem, though, is having to think about everything is what's got you on the sideline still. And ultimately, I'm going to have you consider why you're sitting in front of me right now. Is it safe to say if you would have been able to take action early and make quick decisions, you might already be in a house?
Yeah.
Definitely so. And so the last thing you want to do today is miss out on this great opportunity, like you just told me a minute ago, is unlike anything you've ever seen, and can help you actually find a house. But what I find is people who tend to have a tendency to think about everything, they always miss out on the best deals. But like I mentioned, you've already been thinking about this. All we got to do today is take the first step. The first step for you is taking advantage of the service. That sound fair enough? Boom, now I'm moving right into it. You guys see what I'm saying? No matter what the scenario is, you're able to walk them through this. And these two questions are really the key here, because this tells me which way I'm going to go. Let me ask you a question. This is why I'm setting you up to volley that ball right back down your head. Right? And this one here is, if I could, would you, I'm opening the gate of the mind. I can say the same thing. If I can show you a way that you don't need to think about this, and you've actually already thought about it before you got here today, is that something you might be interested in finding out? Boom. Well, told me earlier you've been searching for 365 days. That's a long time to think about something. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
You've already been thinking about if you want to buy a house or not. We talked about the struggle you had the last 12 months, and you told me 2 seconds ago, this is unlike anything you've ever seen. Would you agree? So it seems to me, right, we've already thought about what we need to do. All you got to do today is take the first step. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Great. The first step is taking advantage of the service, signing here, and we'll get you set up today. Right? Whatever it is. But we got to be very good at going back and forth in whoever this is in that scenario. Now, what does this take to do? Practicing. I was trying to figure out if I could have something that you guys could just use that was universal. You don't have to memorize 50 different word tracks. You might be able to overcome everything.